Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is such an important topic, how to navigate libido mismatch. My name is Alexandra Stockwell. I'm a physician and an intimate marriage expert, a relationship and intimacy coach, and I am in many ways immersed in the world of libido mismatch because it is so frequent and it can be so very challenging. I want to really start by addressing what it's like for each person. Now, I think anyone who's been in a relationship for a while, maybe months, but let's just go with years and decades, you know the experience of one of you being in a phase of wanting more sexual activity, wanting more sexual contact, and the other one not wanting that, or at least not being available for it for any number of reasons. That is something that is so painful. And I think often when you're in one of those positions, it's hard to understand how challenging it is for the other. So let's start with the person who has more desire, more space, energy, inclination, and ultimately yearning for sexual expression and connection. And just let me be very clear, don't be fooled. In a heteronormative relationship, that can certainly be the man, as is more stereotypical, but it absolutely certainly can be the woman too, which is also very, very confronting. So let's say you're the person with high desire, with more desire, with wanting more sexual contact, sexual activity. And let me also say, wanting more could mean you want it twice a week. It could mean you want it twice a day. Like, people have different levels of desire, different yearnings, and I definitely know couples that are having sex 2 and 3 times a week, and one of the partners is frustrated because he has high desire and is not getting as much sex as he wants. Then, those are high numbers, but I just want to normalize that there's a whole range of normal and delicious when it comes to frequency of sexual activity. As far as I'm concerned, it's the quality that matters the most. And if you're obsessed with frequency, it's usually because you're using sex as a stress reliever, which I'm not knocking it. It serves very well. But if that's the case, I suggest you find other additional things that will allow you to relieve your stress, whether it's intensely working out or learning to meditate or whatever. But today, what I'm really focusing on is libido mismatch without addressing all of the extraneous considerations, although they deserve attention for sure. So anyway, the person with more desire ends up feeling kind of torn apart with desire, yearning for connection, using sexual activity to be with a partner, enjoying sex for sure, but also accessing intimacy through sexual activity. And for that person in a phase in a relationship where there's libido mismatch, the sense of rejection and isolation really cuts to the core. It's not like not being able to go bowling, not being able to have sex as much as a person wants. Really, it cuts to their identity. It cuts to their sense of value and worth throughout their entire life. Someone who seems to be really successful, but is unable to express, give, and receive sexually is not going to feel successful in the way that they would if they could have the connection they want. For someone who yearns to have more sex, it is not selfish. It is how they want to connect. It is how they want to express love. And when all of that has to stop, it's like not being able to finish any sentence you start, never getting a sense of fulfillment. And it creates a sense of walking on eggshells and trying to figure out how to show up well in a way that works. A person with higher desire is going to feel like there's something wrong with them. Maybe if they were different, this whole situation would be different. So I really want to emphasize that if you're the low desire partner, you find your way to some compassion for your partner's experience. Similarly, if you're the low desire partner, it can be so complicated. It can be hard to relax in the relationship. It can be hard to relax when the two of you are alone without any particular important focus, like, I don't know, you're cooking dinner or you're paying bills or something. But if there's a kind of unscheduled feeling, something so important for a relationship to be able to relax together, if you're the low desire partner, that can be super complicated, and it is better to keep busy until you fall asleep rather than to have to be in that uncertainty and the dread of disappointing your partner. In any case, for the partner with low desire, and again, in a heteronormative context, the low desire partner absolutely can be a woman, which is more stereotypical, but it certainly can be a man too. For the low desire partner, the devastating effects can compound how guilty you feel and how challenging it is to really just relax and be with how things are. I think one of the things I really want to emphasize is for both the high desire partner and maybe more so the low desire partner, this is an ongoing stressful state. This is when there's libido mismatch without harmonious collaboration and understanding. It is a state of ongoing stress whenever the two of you are together, and certainly when the two of you are together and no one else is there. It puts you in a state of stress, which then has all of the consequences of being less relaxed, less creative, less calm, and less open for sex, because when you're stressed, you cannot feel the turn on that naturally might otherwise arise. So I want to say a little bit more about the low desire partner's circumstance, which is, it often means having a very weird relationship to oneself and not feeling free to just be with oneself in the way one wants to because of the implications for the partner. So for the high desire partner, I think it's really important to realize that it's not irrelevant. It's just playing out differently for the other partner. So, and one of the things that happens in this situation is it becomes very difficult to talk about because you have different points of view, you have different wounding, you have different projections. And so one of the most important things is to learn to be able to discuss things in a way that doesn't make them worse, but actually makes them better. So I want to just right off the bat say that if that is your situation, that it's difficult to be having these conversations, the Aligned and Hot Marriage program will absolutely help you with those conversations. The program is not focused on having conversations about sex. It's focused on having more connection, more meaningful conversations, more honest conversations, because when you do, the breakthroughs that happen, it really is like sprinkling pixie dust and making things better. So that's one thing that I want to say. I want to also really presence this very, very important idea, which is the difference between spontaneous desire and responsive desire. Spontaneous desire is the kind of desire that we think of a 16-year-old boy having, where it's just you see someone and you're hot. You're hot for them, and it's almost instantaneous. Now, in the mature lives of busy professionals, busy with children, there's a lot going on, then spontaneous desire isn't happening all the time whenever someone beautiful is present, or someone attractive is really the better word to say. But the point is that with spontaneous desire, you can just think about sex and be ready for it. Again, this is stereotypically how in society we think of men being, and some men are that way. It is not my experience that that is actually how all men in committed relationships are, or even most. But the point is that this can happen with any gender, and it's like the baseline of sexuality is higher, and so one is ready. One is ready whenever the other partner is available, and one is ready even when the other partner isn't. This is spontaneous desire. It arises spontaneously, and it's beautiful. Then there's responsive desire, which instead of being the kind of sex desire dial, instead of being dialed up intrinsically all the time, with responsive desire, your sexual desire arises in response to what's happening. And particularly for, let's say, a woman who is working hard in her job, she has many responsibilities, children, household, whatever it is, there are always things to do. She is very likely to have responsive desire. What does that mean? It means that there needs to be some sexy talk. Or maybe the bedroom just needs to be clean with new sheets on the bed and the curtains down. Or maybe she wants music and candles lit, and for you to draw her a bath, and when she comes out, you put lotion on her, and then she's available. Maybe it's having a delicious meal. Maybe it's not actually eating that much, having a very light supper, because when you eat too much, you don't really feel like having sex. Maybe it's reading erotica beforehand. So if you are the low desire partner, one of the most important contributions you can make is to become clear on what are the circumstances, what are the conditions in which you're able to relax and the desire arise. Now, I am specifically right now not addressing medical conditions, chronic fatigue. There just are a lot of physiological things, and the answer is see your doctor, see your practitioner. But I think way, way more often than it's called for, people take that route without going in the direction that I'm describing now. So I'm not dismissing those kinds of considerations or hormones you need to take or any of that stuff. I'm just providing other information in this setting. And so for the low desire spouse to identify what are the conditions that allow you to be more responsive, and to discover that for yourself. Think back to when you were turned on. Was someone particularly speaking nicely to you? Did you get enough sleep the night before? I mean, it really can be any number of things that happen that allow your responsive desire to arise, and any number of things that don't happen that allow your responsive desire to arise. But the most important way to bridge the libido mismatch is for you to identify what that is. And once you've done so, communicate it to your partner. Let your partner know what it is that's going to allow you to enjoy being open and having more sexual activity. Now, for the high desire spouse, now let me just say, like I said, candles, I gave pretty feminine examples, and that's not what it takes for everyone, of course. And in particular, if you're a woman with a low desire spouse, in the end, the most common thing that I see with the low desire spouse who's a man, it's that he doesn't feel successful, either with his woman specifically, or in his life in general, in his work. If he's not making as much money as he believes he should, that will tank desire. If he doesn't feel skillful as a lover, and so finds his woman very attractive, but isn't sure how to create the most passionate orgasmic experiences for her, in that way, he doesn't feel successful. And that also will tank his desire. And again, I'm not talking about back pain or other considerations, just the variables that really one can go very far with. So I've coached many couples. One of the earliest couples that I ever coached, I speak about them from time to time because when they first found me, they hadn't had sex in 9 months. And she's a very beautiful woman, and she thought that she was aging and he was no longer attracted to her. That wasn't the case at all. When I coached them, what arose is that he felt inadequate to really provide pleasure and be the man that he felt she deserved. And the result of that is that he just rejected her initiating sex because saying no, while uncomfortable, was a lot more comfortable than being naked together, and his feeling that he wasn't the most skillful lover and that he didn't really know how to provide pleasure. So what I'm wanting to get at is that it's really important to have conversations, be curious, and do it without judgment. Just like ask, how are you thinking about what's going on with us sexually? And whatever answer you receive, do not disagree with it. Just receive it, because then you know how it's alive in your partner, and telling them they're wrong or any variation on that is not actually helpful for resolving this problem. So there's one more piece that I want to add to this conversation, while also saying that I really think libido mismatch is a myth. Like it's not, it's how it feels. It's a term we have when there's a discrepancy in desire for sex, but really I think it is entirely a reflection of misunderstanding how desire works. And one of the keys is this distinction between spontaneous desire and responsive desire. Another key is being able to have conversations so that you can figure out how to move forward and align more. And then the third key, which I want to share today, is that in a situation where libido mismatch is experienced, both people can develop a kind of binary attitude. And what I mean is that if there's any affection at all, there's a risk that sex is on the table. So for the high desire spouse, like if your spouse rubs your back in a way and breathes on your neck, it's like, oh, maybe we're open for business. Maybe we can proceed. But if you have that attitude, then it is very, very complicated for the low desire spouse to give you affection, which feels so good and you want to have. Sure, you want more sex, but you also can enjoy affection, and you close that possibility off if whenever there's affection, you're like, oh, okay, I know where this is going. Similarly, when the high desire spouse is affectionate towards the low desire spouse, if she thinks it's supposed to lead somewhere, or he thinks it's supposed to lead somewhere, the low desire spouse is going to have a tendency to contract, be tense, and not be able to enjoy the affection, because if you relax into it, if you allow it, if you're responsive, there might be an assumption that you're going to be available for sex. So one of the things that I think is so important, ideally through a conversation, that you establish that you can be affectionate, that you can enjoy one another physically, or even be flirtatious, send sexy texts, whatever it is that you feel like doing, without it being a commitment to having sex if you don't already have desire and you're not expecting spontaneous desire, and maybe there isn't a context for responsive desire. But either way, the point that I want to make is that a couple who's really in this kind of a trap, for both the high desire and the low desire spouse, it can feel like things are either shut or open for business, open for sex. And when that's the case, you really create far more suffering than is needed, even if neither of you changed anything else, to just see the sexual expression on a continuum, where here there's, let's say, no touching and a kind of a coolness, and here there's passion. There's so much in between, and it's not unidirectional. In other words, you can start and just get in the habit of hugging and really relaxing and enjoying the hug, and that is it. Or maybe eventually you get to where you lie in bed naked and you embrace one another. And even if you feel the man get hard, it doesn't mean that you're going to have sex. There's so much, it's like if you're having an incredible 7-course meal, you want to have the capacity to have all the pleasure available in just having the cocktails, even if you left and went home for pizza. You want to be able to enjoy appetizers. Sure, sometimes you want to just go for that entree, but what if, actually, this is funny to think of, but my great-grandparents, in the early years of their marriage, when they had very little money, and by early years of their marriage, I mean, what do I mean? I probably mean 1910, 1914, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what year they got married, but in any case, they were living in Brooklyn with very little money. And one of the things they used to do for a treat for their dates was have a full meal at home and then go to a really nice restaurant and have soup and dessert. And they thoroughly enjoyed that. And I'm inviting you, if you're in a phase of your relationship, whether it's pretty much always been this way or this is something more recent, that if you're in a phase where there's libido mismatch, not to get into this binary, or to get out of this binary thinking that any kind of affection, any kind of flow is dangerous because it's going to end up leading to sex. Because there's a way in which the isolation that each person can feel when there is libido mismatch, that isn't necessary, even if you're not having any more sex at all. Because when you can be affectionate, when you can enjoy non-sexual physical touch, when you can really have a wonderful make out, meaning kissing, but it doesn't mean it goes to penetration. And this requires more communication so that expectations are clear and no one's navigating disappointment or being a disappointment. But when you can really enjoy everything on the buffet table, well, first of all, that makes it more likely that you're going to be having more sex as well. But that's the side benefit. The more important benefit, which is functions as a kind of a lubricant, is that you don't feel so isolated within your marriage physically, because you can have all kinds of good friendships with other people, but the kind of connection and communion and affirmation that is available with sharing your body with another person, a lot of that is available without overtly sexual activity. I also really want to emphasize that if these are things that speak to you, come join me in the Aligned and Hot Marriage live coaching program. We start April 16th, and you will have access to the rich, kind of gently paced, very profound, transformational, fun Aligned and Hot Marriage curriculum, as well as 2 hours of live coaching every week. It is such a beautiful way to explore, expand, relax, and know yourself better and your partner, and totally up level the culture of your marriage. I mean, that's why I've designed the program to be able to do that, because so many people would love an up leveled culture in their marriage. And so I would be my pleasure to show you how to do that, including libido mismatch, but certainly not only that. The tools that you learn, they'll be yours for the rest of your life, no matter what challenges arise. And there always will be challenges. So it's very important to learn how to navigate challenges in a way that creates more connection, more depth in your intimacy. Look, having a fantastic relationship is a learnable skill. And I really see my function as providing education so that you can learn that skill. Yeah, if there's anything that got your attention and you want me to follow up on it, just email me and I'll address the question in another Monday webinar. Bye-bye.